These are the John Chapman awards on the Wayne Breezy Show. So you get to pick who you're going to put in these positions. So let's start with Rookie of the Year. Who is John Chapman's Rookie of the Year?
It's got to go to Jair Brown. I think Jair Brown or Jake Moody. I think those are the two guys you're going to give it to. And so I'm going Jair Brown. Had to step up earlier than we thought. Not amazing, but we don't play rookies unless there's an injury. That's what it is. So Jair Brown, hopefully he can come back in the playoffs and, put some good stuff on tape. Excited about him and just what he brings. And, we didn't have a pick till late in the third.
Correct.
So I'm going Jair Brown, Rookie of the Year.
Love it. Jair Brown is John's Rookie of the Year. John, who is your most improved player this year? Most improved player of the year. You can only pick one.
I can only do one? I don't like that.
I know.
The initial names that kind of came to mind, I'm going to go Diamador Lenore.
Ooh.
I'm going to go Diamador Lenore. The fact that not only did he completely solidify the outside spot, which I think he did last year, but the fact that their game plan was Isaiah Oliver in the slot, totally scrapped that after the first week and said, hey, we're going to change this dude's position. Starter, now you're doing two. I'm going Diamador Lenore. Very easily could have been Charvarius Ward. There's lots of guys that come to mind with this, but Diamador Lenore is the one that I'm going to put out there.
I can dig it. All right, let's go with the offensive player of the year.
Christian McCaffrey.
That's pretty good.
2,000 total yards, 21 touchdowns. He's going to be the NFL Offensive Player of the Year for the second time of his career. We're going to make a lot of money. If you've been betting with us, good Lord. Well, we put some money on that one before the season, then we re-upped at 5 weeks in the season. We're going to be making some money on that.
Woo, 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 woo. Money making time. Cha-ching. All right, let's go with Defensive Player of the Year.
Fred Warner. It's not close. I don't think there's anybody even
close.
He's building a Hall of Fame resume. Like, he is building, here's the thing. Whenever you talk Hall of Fame, the first thing that comes to mind is, can you talk about this generation of football in that position without talking about this player? So if you're talking about linebacker play the past 10 years in the NFL, which he hasn't even been around that long, can you not talk about Fred Warner? You can't. He's the first guy you bring up. He is revolutionizing the way in which you play the position and how coverage is so huge. And he's the best coverage linebacker. He might be the best coverage linebacker in the history of the NFL. I know you're putting Urlacher, Brooks. There's lots of guys that you could put in that conversation. Fred Warner belongs in that conversation. He's doing it. He's incredible. Fred Warner, Defensive Player of the Year for the 49ers completely.
I love it. Now, just to get back to that Pro Bowl, 49ers _throwback says, thank you for the super chat contribution, that Brock Purdy was snubbed and he should have been first or second All Pro.
Should have been second.
He should have been second. And I agree with that. But I like the reasoning on why, that you had, right? Because when you look at Brock Purdy, he had the bad game. And then it was an okay game against the Commanders, and he didn't play against the Rams, right? Dak Prescott was consistent the last 5 weeks in the NFL. I think that's what got him the votes, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 games, he had 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 103 passer rating all combined. That was his lowest rating. And so that was against Miami, Detroit, and then at Washington. And so, I mean, what have you done for me lately? It's the last thing they remember. A lot of those were primetime games at Miami, Detroit. That's huge. Mm-hmm. So, I get it. I don't mind. I would have voted Purdy because I think he was better throughout the year. But, he closed down the stretch. Dak did. You have to give him props.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not always about how you start. It's kind of like how you finished. And he's been consistent. So, he had the higher interception ratio earlier in the season, and it kind of tailed off and things like that. And so, it's unfortunate for Purdy. I mean, I want him to win everything. I want him to win MVP. I want him to win, but maybe he'll get a Super Bowl MVP. So let's just pump the brakes and wait on that. But I like your players so far because we got to go with the Kit and Caboodle Award, which will be the MVP, the most valuable player for the San Francisco 49ers in the eyes of John Chapman.
I'm going Brock
John,
Purdy. Brock Purdy. I mean, with what he's done, this is, one of the best seasons ever. Statistically, efficiently, win-loss, touchdown, interception, whatever. Brock Purdy, this is a top 5 to 6 regular season of 49ers quarterback play in the history of our program. I mean, first quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards since 2001. First quarterback to throw for over 30 touchdowns since 2000. I mean, this dude is putting up – he got 2 first-place votes in the all – like, when have the 49ers been able to say that about a quarterback? It has been a long freaking time. So my MVP, and I know that's dominated by quarterbacks and all that stuff, I'm going Brock Purdy. And that dude has changed the way we see the 49ers and what our long-term success is. Everybody used to talk about how, like, oh, what are we going to do? You remember the Kirk Cousins conversations?
I remember the Kirk Cousins conversation.
I could sleep soundly at night, Wayne
that
Breezy,
junk is dead now.
knowing that corny ass Mama Jamma
I understand.
is not going to be on my team
I
that
got
I root
you.
for, and I'm thankful. I do not like Kirk Cousins.
I got you. A couple of things, because here's one guy you could have put in the conversation, right? And so,
for sure. Trent Williams. Yeah, JP, what's up, brother?
Shout out to JP, man. Like, offensive linemen will never get the fanfare that they deserve because they're trench players. They do the dirty work. Like they you know what I mean? Like even when I think about Joe Thomas, like he might have stood out in Cleveland because they just never had a quarterback. Like he was the best player on the team, period, for the whole time he was there. So it was Joe Thomas every year until he retired.
Well, let me ask you this, and you can answer this or whatever. Would you rather go into a playoff game with Brock Purdy as your quarterback and Jalen Moore as your left tackle, or would you rather go into a playoff game with Trent Williams and Sam Darnold as your quarterback? If you had to pick one of those two.
Oh, I'm going. I'll take Jalen Moore and Brock.
Exactly. And that's not a shot on Trent. That's not.
I got you.
He is incredible, but you got to have a quarterback. You got to have one.
And you got to have a competent quarterback. When you say you got to have a quarterback, I know what you mean. But for those that don't understand that, it's the completeness, it's the competence, it's all of the things. It's the ability to ad lib, it's the ability to make accurate throws, it's the ability to be efficient. It's what Kyle Shanahan needs because we've had quarterbacks, we just haven't had the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think Brock can be him. I really do, and I hope.
Oh, he's the franchise.
He's
the franchise. He's the franchise, and I just we'll wait till that happens. We'll wait till next year when you start seeing the money and all that type of stuff. But he's the franchise, and it would be really cool to see how he pans out his future as far as pay and things like that. Like that would really set the tone. But I would argue Trent Williams. Some people are saying CMC as MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. So
no problem with any of those. This is just my own personal opinion. And I do kind of operate that MVP, not that it is a quarterback only award, but that's kind of the way it's been portrayed. But again, MVP, in my opinion, I do like how they do one or the other. Like the MVP doesn't ever win Offensive Player of the Year. I do like that.
It's you can get one. You're right. And I could dig that. Celts Chronicle, man, has a dope question. Who's your most underrated 49er?
Dre Greenlaw. It's not even close. I was pretty pissed.
You think he's underrated?
I do, very much so. He got 7 votes for All-Pro. Meanwhile, Bobby Wagner, who can't cover anybody, he can't cover anybody. And
Bobby Wagner's getting stuff still because of his name and what he's done. He'll soon be fizzled out. I don't think Greenlaw's underrated. Maybe to the league, but definitely not as a 49er.
This year, some of the names that come up, Tayshaun Gibson, I thought he was huge this year for the 49ers.
Okay.
I'm trying to go through starters. John Feliciano, he stands out. Charlie Warner stands out. Cleveland Farrell, I thought he was great, but I don't think Mooney Ward's really underrated. That not anymore. And so it kind of the
That's
underrated
why
award's weird because
right. That's why I feel like Greenlaw's not underrated. He's the mother freaking man. Like you know what I mean. But maybe to the league he's underrated. Like, but
right.
but then again he's not, because when they talk about the Niners, and they talk about the Niners defense, what's the first thing they mention? It's not even Nick Bosa. It's the San Francisco 49ers linebacking core.
Yeah,
All
that's
season
true.
long, it's the linebacking core. It's number 1 Fred Warner and number 7 or 6, Dre Greenlaw. I don't get underrated from that.
Who stands out for you? I'm curious. Like who's your
underrated?
Like,
oh man,
you
like
gotta say one of your Michigan boys. Say one of your Michigan guys.
No. They haven't played enough to be rated. Like, you know what I mean?
He's had a good year. He came to mind whenever I thought about underrated.
If I had to pick a Michigan guy as underrated, I don't know. I don't know. It would be Jake Moody. Like I don't think people really realize what they're going to get in the future. They only seeing what they're seeing right now, and so I just think that was a draft pick that they used like for now and something for the future, because you can keep that pick, you can keep it cheap. And once he starts kicking them balls through the middle of the upright, I think everybody will start being like, "Oh, this is the best pick we ever had." And I get it. Like I totally get it. So if I had to pick a Michigan guy, I think it would be Jake Moody. I love Ambry Thomas. I love what he did. Dude, went
Plays a
from
good ball.
not playing to starting. Like, that's crazy. I don't think he was ever on the chopping block, but he just wasn't. He was just going to be a rotational player. And then his number was called. So I don't know. I don't think Juice is underrated. I think he's underutilized. I don't have an underrated player.
It's hard. Charlie Warner is a guy that, like, in the back of my head, like, I thought he has been awesome.
He's the junkyard dog of tight ends, right?
He has been great, man.
Like, great in blocking.
Really
finally starting to get routes. You're starting to give him some catches. I get that. I can live with that. I like Charlie Warner being an underrated player. I think that's the one. I think that's a great one.
The 49ers Rush Podcast.